This is live in New York for the BBC, and we've come off the mayhem of Broadway, and I'm also very pleased to be joined by the wonderful Derek Smith, who plays Scar in The Lion King. Congratulations on the show. It's a wonderful show, isn't it?
Oh, thank you very much, yeah. It's a lovely show. I hope you enjoyed it, yeah?
It was absolutely wonderful, and your character is the character that sticks out as being the most fun, because the villains are always the best parts to play, aren't they?
Yeah, well, not always. I don't think always, but in this one, he certainly has. You really get to carry the plot line. You really drive the plot, and you, in a big musical, and always they have rather thin books to them. Scar's got a lot of good acting scenes in it.
This show really has everything. It has great music. It has brilliant scenery, a great cast. It's got everything, hasn't it?
Yes, this is where I always wanted to be, and. I think as an actor you have to force yourself to stay in the moment, because in this country you're always thinking about, or probably in Great Britain too, you're always thinking about what's next, what am I going to do next, what if this show closes. Lion King, that's not the case, but usually you're always thinking of the next job, and it's not a good way to spend your life. So you have to, in my experience, force yourself to stay where you are and enjoy where you are and experience it fully. Otherwise, you'll have a bunch of empty experiences by the time you're retiring.
Do you ever wonder how you got the job? What was so special about you? Because, I mean, you've got a great voice, and I think it's so perfect for Scar's role.
Julie talked to me originally about doing this, and my first response was, I don't sing. I've never been in a musical. I don't sing. I can't. It scares me too much. So a few years later, and I had worked with her in between, one of the Scars was leaving, and they called me in for it, and they said, you can do this. And it was the scariest thing in the world to me to sing. And Scar doesn't really have beautiful music, but I had never been with an orchestra. So that was terrifying, and I wondered why in the world did they want me. I played a very similar character for Julie before. I played he wasn't a villain, but he was a sad king, and with a lot of the same vocal intonations, and I know that's why she thought of me for the role.
As I mentioned earlier, the scenery is amazing in this show, and we're not going to give anything away, but it can be scary because you're going quite high in some parts, and as I say, I'm not going to give it away, but you fall quite a height, don't you, at some points?
Yeah, well, then I have wires, but the rest of the time when we're equally as high, there are no wires. And it was a little frightening at first. But yeah, the falling at the end was very scary the first time, because you're on wires that you don't really feel until you fall back and they catch you. But that's all. You make friends with the crew. You make sure they like you. No, it's a fantastic crew and a large crew.
Is it a team? Because you're doing quite a lot of shows a week, aren't you? And if you don't get on with these people, I'm sure it could be quite miserable.
Yeah, there's 100 people working in that building. A 46, I believe, person cast, and an enormous crew, and more dressers, more wardrobe people than I've ever seen on any show in my life. There must be 30 of them. Everyone, I don't know if they make an effort. Everyone seems to get along. Of course, there's trouble here and there, but it's also so choreographed backstage. It would really be interesting. I always wish the audience could then, after seeing the show, come backstage. It's just as good a show. It is so tightly choreographed. I mean, you cannot linger any place. You stay on your track, because there are so many people and so much scenery changing so fast that you can't linger and have an argument with anybody.
And the kids are wonderful in this. The Simba character is just amazing how the kids sing, dance, act, everything. They're just the part, aren't they?
Yeah, these are new kids too. They've only been in, I think, a couple of weeks. They rotate them every 6 months. I think because of labor laws or something. I don't. But the children only work 6 months. So I've been through, 10 kids. There's 4. So they're adorable. They're really adorable.
I mentioned to you earlier, do you sometimes have to pinch yourself when you realise that you're in certainly the most talked about musical around the world at the moment? It's so new, it's so big, it's always sold out. You can't get tickets for love nor money. Do you pinch yourself? You're on Broadway. I mean, it is as good as you're going to get, really, isn't it? I mean, where can you go from here to get bigger in theatre?
Yeah, I don't know. I suppose you just kind of move laterally. It is very exciting. I never expected to be in a musical, let alone, the biggest hit musical. Yeah, it's wonderful. My mother's she hasn't seen it yet, and it's the first thing I've ever been in that she's heard of, I think. So she's thrilled. She's coming in April.
What did you do before you were in The Lion King?
I did a show with Julie called The Green Bird, which we had done off Broadway, and then we tried it out in California, and we brought it to Broadway spring of 2000, and it was a wonderful show, and it was always well received. I think it got so much pumped into it when it gets to Broadway, as happens with a lot of things, that it just couldn't find an audience. It was well received. People loved it when we got them there. It's that marketing thing that I don't understand about how to get them in. But that's what I'd done before, and we closed only after, I think, 2 months, and Julie said, we need to replace a Scar, and so here I am.
If I can talk to you a moment about New York and about September the 11th, I don't know whether you were on Broadway at the time. I know you've been in the show a while. What was it like around the time of September the 11th?
Well, the day it happened, we don't have shows on Tuesday night, so and the Wednesday was, of course, canceled, and we came back Thursday, which I thought was a little bit soon. I think mainly because I and everyone else was afraid to be in any kind of congregation of people. But we came in and did the show, and it really was surreal. A few shows that week were surreal. It quickly got back to normal, but it was... people were frightened, people were devastated, sad, everything. And what I have to say in that show, really, I never heard it so loudly as I heard it that night, because Scar, we've got that Nazi march of the hyenas, and all of this stuff all of a sudden did not seem like a fun Disney musical. I hated saying what I had to say. He's trying to take over the world, Scar, and even though it's a cartoon, it really scared me that night.
Everything had another meaning.
Yeah. And I think it's never really been the same. And it's not that I don't think there's a sadness, but I think there's a reverence or something in people, or just people have been quieted somehow. They love it. It's still, a fantastic event. They still cheer. You saw it last night.
Yeah.
They cheer and scream, but it's not as loud as it used to be. It has never been as loud as it was before September 11th. And I don't think it means they're not having fun. I think it just means there's a world quietness going on or something.
You mentioned earlier, did you genuinely fear for your life? Was New York just a scary place to be?
Yeah, I really was scared to go into a hall with 1,700 people and 100 employees, and being in Times Square. We didn't know. At that point, people really wondered what's next. And, Times Square is a lot of people at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. Yeah, I was frightened. But I think everyone was frightened too. I was scared to go to I wasn't in the city. I was in New Jersey the morning it happened, and I couldn't get in until Thursday. I think all the bridges and tunnels were closed. I was scared to go to my car. I thought it would explode, So yeah, a lot of irrational kind of fears for a while.
Do you think New York's changed now and they're beginning the healing process and a form of normality is returning?
Yeah, I think a form of normality started returning very soon, strangely soon. But I think that's what we do here. And I don't know if it's the right thing or not, but there was a great push to get back to normal, to build the city again, and to, I guess, not cave in. Who knows what the president and what the leaders but not cave in to what they really were trying to do, which was terrify us.
It's been an honour and a pleasure talking to you today.
Thank you.
Very finally, about the theatre. It is the most beautiful theatre I think I've ever seen in the world. It's the New Amsterdam Theatre, and Disney, I think, had it rebuilt, didn't they? And they just put the money into the theatre as they did the production. Isn't
it a gorgeous theatre? Yeah, they did the renovations. And I guess it looks exactly like it did when the Ziegfeld girls were there. Yeah, it's extraordinary. When I saw the show before I was in it, and I took my breath away, the renovations.
How do you feel, very finally, when you look out at 1,700 people and at that beautiful theatre? Because you're actually, I know your character doesn't go into the theatre, but there's a lot of audience participation in that show, isn't there?
Yeah, but the people coming... I remember every night when I listened to that number backstage, I remember how I felt when I saw it. I mean, you can't help but, like, tear up. It's just the power of it, I think, and with turning around and seeing this life-size elephant walk by you, and... I feel quite honored. I feel really honored to be in such a... I've never heard so many gorgeous singing voices in my life, and it's something that I don't, do well necessarily, so I'm amazed every night when I hear my fellow cast members sing that.
If you'd like to get tickets, they're booking for about 2012. That's about the first day available, isn't it? It takes a while to get tickets these days.
Get my daughter through college.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been great talking today. Derek Smith, Scar from The Lion King. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
The Alex Belfield In Conversation podcast with daisymedia.co.uk. Alex Belfield.